Hello, everyone. I'm Anna, and welcome back to English Conversation Studio. Today, Alex and I are going to practice real-life phone conversations in English. Talking on the phone can be more difficult than face-to-face communication because you cannot see the other person's expressions. That's why it's important to practice clear and natural speaking.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex. Yes, phone conversations require good listening skills and clear pronunciation. When you speak on the phone, you need to be polite, direct, and easy to understand. Today we will go through different real-life situations that can help you feel more confident.
Let's start with answering a phone call. When your phone rings, you can say, "Hello, this is Anna speaking," or simply, "Hello, how can I help you?" This sounds polite and professional in most situations.
Yes, and if you are calling someone, you can begin with, "Hi, this is Alex. I hope you are doing well," and then explain the reason for your call. It's always good to introduce yourself clearly, especially if the person may not recognize your voice.
Now imagine you are calling a company or office. You can say, "Hello, I'm calling to ask about your services," and then explain your question in a simple way. Speaking slowly and clearly is very important in this situation.
That's right, and the person may ask you questions in return. For example, they might say, "Can you give me more details?" Or, "What exactly are you looking for?" You should be ready to answer calmly and clearly.
Sometimes you may need to ask someone to repeat. This is very common in phone conversations because the sound is not always clear. You can say, "Sorry, could you repeat that, please?" Or, "I didn't catch that."
Yes, and this is completely normal. Even native speakers ask for repetition sometimes, especially if the connection is not good. Don't feel embarrassed, just ask politely and continue the conversation.
Let's talk about making an appointment. You can say, "I'd like to make an appointment for tomorrow," and then ask, "Is there any time available?" This is very common when calling a doctor or a service.
Yes, and the other person might respond, "We have an opening at 10 a.m., or "Is 2 p.m. okay for you?" You can then confirm by saying, "Yes, that works for me," or suggest another time.
Another situation is calling a friend. This is more informal, so you can say, "Hey, how are you? I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." This sounds friendly and natural.
Yes, and you can continue with something like, "Do you have time to talk?" or "Are you busy right now?" This shows respect for the other person's time.
Now imagine the person is not available. Someone else might answer and say, "He is not here right now." In this case, you can say, "Can I leave a message?"
Yes, and then you can say, "Please tell him that Alex called," and maybe add, "I will call again later." This is a very useful and common situation.
Let's talk about dealing with problems on the phone. For example, you might say, "I have a problem with my order," and then explain the situation clearly. Try to stay calm and polite.
Yes, being calm is very important. You can also say, "Could you help me solve this problem?" or "What can we do about this?" This helps move the conversation toward a solution.
Another important skill is confirming information. You can say, "So, just to confirm, the meeting is at 3 p.m., and wait for the other person to agree."
That's a great habit. It helps avoid misunderstandings and makes communication clearer.
Sometimes phone conversations can feel uncomfortable, especially if you are not confident, but practice makes it easier over time.
Yes, the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Even simple conversations can improve your confidence.
Let's talk about ending a phone call. You can say, "Thank you for your time," and then add, "Have a great day." This is polite and professional.
Yes, and in informal situations, you can say, "Talk to you later," or "Take care." Ending the conversation nicely leaves a good impression.
Another useful tip is to smile while speaking. Even though the other person cannot see you, they can hear the positivity in your voice.
That's true. Your tone of voice is very important in phone conversations. Speaking clearly and warmly makes communication easier.
Remember, you don't need to use difficult words. Simple and clear English is always better.
Yes, communication is the goal, not perfection. Focus on being understood.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's conversation here on English Conversation Studio. We hope this phone conversation practice helps you feel more confident.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to English Conversation Studio and support our channel.
Also, don't forget to share this video with your friends who are learning English.
Thank you very much for listening and practicing English with us today.
Keep practicing, stay confident, and we'll see you again in our next conversation on English Conversation Studio.